This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hello, cat lovers. Welcome to Cattitude. I'm your show host, Michelle Fern. Okay, what is the one thing that you always question about your cats? Well, for me, it's how to play with my cat because they're lazy and nothing seems to motivate them. So when I saw the opportunity to talk with someone who not only knows all about this, but wrote an amazing book about how to play with your cat, I thought, yes. So stay tuned. You will not want to miss this show. We'll be right back.
Take a bite out of your competition. Advertise your business with an ad in Pet Life Radio podcasts and radio shows. There is no other pet-related media that is as large and reaches more pet parents and pet lovers than Pet Life Radio. With over 7 million monthly listeners, Pet Life Radio podcasts are available on all major podcast platforms, and our live radio stream goes out to over 250 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, and other streaming apps. For more information on how you can advertise on the #1 pet podcast and radio network, visit PetLifeRadio.com/advertise today.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I would like to welcome Mikel Maria Delgado, PhD. She just wrote the book, Play with Your Cat. It's the essential guide to interactive play for a happier, healthier feline. And she is an author, cat behavior consultant at Feline Minds, and also wrote a book with Jackson Galaxy, which the title of it, something about Mojo.
Total Cat Mojo.
Total Cat Mojo. I wanted to plug you more than him. Welcome, Mikel. Thanks so much for coming on Cattitude.
Thank you so much for having me.
So what I said in the intro is so true. So I have 3 cats, and they're not kittens. They're all senior-ish. And it's such a challenge to get them to play. So I was so happy to read your book and so glad to have you on. But let's go back a little bit. What made you decide to write Play with Your Cat?
Yeah, I mean, I had a book agent before I had a book idea. And so she was very patient with me because I really didn't know if I wanted to write a book. I knew that I didn't want to write another book about how to make your cat well-behaved or how to solve all your behavior problems with your cats, even though that is what I do with my clients all the time. I wanted to do something that was going to be maybe more fun. And I had written a scientific review of the scientific literature on play. So all of the research that had been done on play behavior in cats. And as I was working on that paper with my friend Julie Hecht, I thought, I think there's something here that I could bring to a general audience of cat owners. And part of that was also informed by my experiences in the animal shelter and also working with cat owners who often said, kind of like you just did, my cats don't really play. And I always found that to be, one, a challenge. So I would always be like, okay, step aside, I'm going to show you how to play with your cat. And I could always get their cat to play. But 2, it was just like, whoa, there's a lot of people that kind of give up easily on playing with their cat because they're not getting the response that they maybe expected, or the cat doesn't respond like they did when they were a kitten, right? Kittens are very easy to play with. As cats become adults, they are, not quite as active as kittens. But if you think about why cats play, and cats play because they hunt, then cats should play throughout their lifespan, because if they were out on the streets, they would have to hunt for their entire life to survive. So I knew that there was something missing in people's understanding of why play behavior was important for their cats, why it's natural for their cats. And I really saw this as an opportunity to write a fun, hopefully fun book and help people have a better relationship with their cat, help make their cat happier, and in the meantime, also perhaps prevent or solve some behavior problems, because I do use play as a big part of my behavior modification plans with my clients.
Well, we could talk about Charlotte later.
Yes, we should.
She's my behavior problem cat. But back to the book. And you touched on this just previously. But what I do really like about your book is that it's not just this is how you play. You can do this, you can do that, DIY stuff and this, but you go through the behaviors like just did as far as they hunt for prey. And that's just how they're wired. That's instinct. There's that, I've heard different percentages, but they share like 95% of their DNA with their other feline friends out there in the wild. So this is what motivates them. And once I think the cat pet parent really gets that, then they can understand a lot more about the whys of cat. And this is coming from me that I had dogs first. I didn't have cats till adulthood. A cat adopted me, and that's how it started. Which is so you talk about the behaviors and the golden rules of play and tips for play. But what was the purpose of going through the behaviors so that the pet parent would really get what you were trying to explain?
I think people really don't think about how cats experience the world, right? We love our cats. Hopefully they're, cuddling with us and hanging out with us and sleeping on the bed with us and all those, warm, fuzzy things. But we often kind of think of them as small humans. And that can be a very dangerous way to approach, how we think about cats. It leads to misunderstandings. It leads to behavior problems when people don't understand what their cat needs. So in my perspective, when we're thinking about cats, we have to understand how they experience the world. For example, their sensory world. Olfaction is much more important to them than vision, but we're very visual as humans. So we project a lot of how we experience the world onto our cats. For example, and I bring this up in the book, is like buying toys that we think are cute, right? Like the pizza slice or the catnip lemon, and really trying to understand like how does that relate to how your cat sees that toy, right? Like understanding what their visual acuity is or understanding what colors they see. So I really want people to understand their cat's sensory world. I want them to understand what natural behaviors are for cats, because that leads to a lot of misunderstanding. People don't realize that hunting is like the most important instinct that has stuck with them through evolution, through domestication. We've never selected cats to not be hunters. We really have not put a lot of selection pressure on them at all through domestication. Unlike dogs, who we've really shaped some of their behaviors quite a bit, we haven't really done that with cats. So cats still have those very natural instincts to hunt, to mark their territory, to scratch, to climb. And these are all things that we need to provide outlets for our cats so that they can be happy pets. Understanding that when we keep them primarily indoors with us, we are restricting their lifestyle. We're limiting their activities. So we have to do whatever we can to give them appropriate outlets for those behaviors. And hunting is one of those behaviors that we should be providing them with an outlet for, and that we can do through playing with them with interactive toys.
Before I get to, and we'll probably do this in the second half of the show, I want to ask about your favorite toy. But before we get to that, you talk about the golden rules of play. And I absolutely agree with you. I think a lot of people misunderstand how we should play with our cats and how we get, frustrated because they're not playing how they should. And, I had to learn about cats, and I still need to learn more about how to play with them, which is why I'm grateful for your book, the chance to talk to you. And I'm sure plenty of the people listening out there are. Michael, you have the golden rules of play. And as I was reading them, I thought, yes, that's so true. I learned that. Yes. So we're going to go through them because I think that's something important for pet parents to really get. So 1, don't scare your cat.
Yes. So, I will say that I came up with these golden rules mainly just to make some of the key points of the book more digestible, right? I'm throwing a lot of information at people, and I'm really trying to communicate, effectively and in a user-friendly way. But sometimes you need some bullet points and lists to really help people digest. And these are really based on things that I've observed, either watching visitors at the animal shelter try to play with shelter cats, or dealing with some of my clients who are trying to play with their own cats. And so what I'm really trying to get across here is that there are some big picture things to keep in mind, because the other thing that I want this book to be is not like a step-by-step manual that you have to follow every single rule or you're doing it wrong. It's really like encouraging people to be scientists and to test things and to have fun and be creative and try new things and just see how their cat reacts. And then kind of let that information guide them as they play with their cat, because each cat is an individual. They're going to respond to every toy differently, and each person's, an individual. So I want to say, like, these golden rules are ones that I feel are pretty broad, that no matter the cat and the human, they should apply to almost everybody. And so the first one being, don't scare your cat. And that's really understanding that when you're moving a toy, you can move it in a way that is exciting to your cat and brings out their inner hunter, or you can move it in a way that might be threatening. And so we're really trying to keep things in the realm of your cat feels safe, your cat feels like a successful hunter, they feel ready to pounce. Not that the toy is loud or scary or moving in a very erratic, unnatural, or intimidating way. So just being thoughtful about your cat, because I think, especially when I'm talking about cats as hunters, right? They're big, tough hunters. They're also prey animals, so they can get intimidated by things that are loud and threatening. And even when they're hunting, they can be threatened by, say, a large rat. Like, they're not just like, oh, I'm going to kill everything, right? They're making a lot of decisions before they hunt, before they make that final leap to kill a prey animal. They have to kind of decide, like, is it safe for me to do that? And so when you're playing with them, you just want them to feel like it's safe for them to pounce on that toy. And that might mean making sure the toy is not so big or loud or being moved in a way that might intimidate your cat.
That makes total sense. Your second rule is safety first, which kind of goes without saying.
Well, yes.
You have to be safer.
What I really want, and I think, my editors were very kind. The book was probably another 20,000 words before it got edited down to the final version. And certainly there were a few points that I really wanted to emphasize. And safety is one of them, because people don't always know how dangerous some cat toys can be. And even how dangerous some household objects can be. Things that your cat might want to play with, like hair ties, can become a dangerous situation if your cat swallows that hair tie. So you have to really supervise strings. You see the kind of stereotypical picture of a kitten playing with a ball of yarn. Well, that ball of yarn is actually very dangerous. It can present both a strangulation hazard and a choking hazard. So I always encourage people to store interactive toys when you're not playing with them with your cat. So anything with a stick and a string and something hanging on the end or a wire needs to be put away, locked away from your cat when you are not actively holding that toy. The other thing is just being aware of what we call solo play toys, things that your cat will play with on their own, might also pose a danger. Like a ball of yarn would not be recommended. So with the safety first, it really is just awareness of what could lead to a very expensive surgery for your cat, or even like kill them, versus just kind of being aware when you're holding the toy that they're not getting tangled in it. So yeah, I'm a little bit of, I have a slightly anxious personality. I think, I'm a bit, yeah, I just, my brain goes to the worst case scenario. So I just try to make sure that people are safe. And because I'm encouraging use of interactive toys, I want to encourage responsible use so that no kitties are injured through playtime, because playtime's supposed to be fun.
Makes perfect sense. I like this next one. Don't annoy your cat. Sometimes we're playing in a way that we think, oh, this should be fun for them, and they're actually getting discouraged.
Yeah, and this really stemmed from watching people come into the shelter. So when I worked at the San Francisco SPCA, we had rooms where the cats lived. So it was a cage-free shelter. And so visitors from the public could come in to meet the cats before they adopted, and we'd often hand them a toy so they could play with the cat. And this was a good way to keep people safe and, discourage people from just like constantly petting cats who were sometimes a little bit stressed in the shelter, and we were trying to prevent them from biting anybody or, getting stressed further. So I had a lot of opportunities to watch how people played with cats. And what I noticed more than anything was that if the person didn't get an immediate response from the cat through moving the toy, so maybe they're just kind of waving the feather wand around, and the cat's just laying there like, meh. What they would often do is start tapping the toy on the cat's body. And the cat would often respond, like they would turn their head and kind of look at the person like, what are you doing? But in the person's mind, like, oh, he's responding, so he's playing, right? Because maybe the cat was biting at the toy, but it wasn't because the cat was playing, it was because they were irritated. So I really want to get across to people, and I hope that this book does that. And, just first of all, setting expectations about what play looks like, because just because your cat's not doing backflips doesn't mean that they're not playing. And also just understanding that, first of all, no mouse or bird is going to like walk up to your cat and start tapping them on the shoulder, like, hey, play with me, hey, hunt me. And so when we're using toys, we want to make sure we're acting like a bird would act, doing things that a mouse would do, so that you're really tapping into, again, your cat's hunting instinct by behaving how their prey animals would behave. But again, doing things that are going to irritate your cat. Another example would be making it so hard for your cat to ever catch the toy that they don't get the physical contact with the toy. So like you're waving the wand way above your cat's body, right? And they're reaching up and they can never actually touch it. Well, part of hunting is making physical contact with that bird or mouse and putting it in their mouth and touching it with their paws and feeling it in their whiskers. And if you make it so hard for your cat to succeed, they are going to get bored and irritated. And so let's not do that.
And that was number 4, letting them win, which
oh yeah, it tied right into that. Yes,
exactly. And then this is something that I had to learn with my cats: no roughhousing, because like I said, I grew up with dogs, and dogs you can roughhouse. They're built for that. They're wired for that. Cats, no. And even though there are times you'd like to, well, Dennis, you can roughhouse a little bit, but most cats, no.
You're going to ask for an injury at some point. And I think, I certainly talked to plenty of people in the, 23 years I've been working with cats and their owners, people who are like, oh, I don't mind if he bites my hands, or, we like to wrestle. And that may be fine for you, but there's not a guarantee that, one, your cat is enjoying that experience, because a lot of times that kind of rough handling can be stressful. It sends your cat a mixed message about what hands are for, so they can become really defensive about hands coming towards their face or their body, because they're really not sure what to expect. Are you going to pin them down and start, fuzzling them really intensely and maybe uncomfortably? Or are you going to pet them and like want to snuggle and be, gentle and cuddly? So in my mind, we really should not be encouraging cats to bite body parts. It can be bad for several reasons. Maybe someone in your house is on blood thinners or has very thin skin. Maybe there are children in your home. Maybe you're not going to end up keeping your cat for your entire life. Or maybe, I hate to say it, but if you get hit by a bus and your cat ends up in a shelter and you've trained them to bite hands, I can tell you from firsthand experience that those cats do not like fly out the shelter door. And in some cases, they may face death if they have a history of biting and scratching people and they show those behaviors in some shelters. So what I'm really getting at here is that we have a responsibility to be kind and gentle to our cats, and also to help them be kind and gentle pets.
Another point, and this I've learned from the wonderful people I've had on the Cattitude all these years, cats have a lot of bacteria in their mouth. So yes, bites and scratches are not good. I had one guest on ages ago, and she was a holistic groomer, and she had a bite and her arm blew up.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, she could end up in the hospital.
Yeah, she was. Her arm she didn't go in. So you never know. And even if you don't have any, medication or issues or something, it's just not a good thing. And to clarify, when I roughhouse with Dennis, it's, scratching his back a lot. I don't flip him around or anything. I don't want to get, I want the record's great. I don't want people to send me hate email because, I don't beat him up or anything. Okay, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. CATTREETRAY.com. Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Mikel Maria Delgado. She wrote Play with Your Cat. This is such a fabulous book. We were just talking about the golden rules of play. Let's get into play now. Now, the top tips that I read for play, and I know that we talked about how, you organize the book, but I think that when people think of tips, that kind of helps set a really good message, as far as things to remember. So you put here, act like prey, move the toy slower, and vary your movements.
Yes, these are all, again, thinking about what play is for cats, right? It's hunting. It's hunting behavior inside on things that are not alive. So we're bringing life to the toys by moving them. And I encourage people to, I like to play videos occasionally for my cats on the TV. One of my cats, Ruby, really loves TV. And so, sometimes we'll play the little bird and mouse videos and she gets into those. But I like to watch them too, because then I kind of watch what the prey animals are doing and what she responds to, what kind of movements. And, mice are kind of jumpy and they hop around and they go into holes. And so we can mimic these behaviors with the toys, which is really what I'm trying to get at, is think about like, what do birds do? What do mice do? How do bugs fly? How do lizards crawl around? And do that with the toy. Move the toy like the prey. And, one of my other things that I talk about a few times in the book is moving the toy very slowly. And this is very much, I think, a human thing, is we're impatient by nature. We have a lot of distractions in our daily lives. We have, I struggle with all of these things myself, dealing with my device time and focus and stepping away from technology and just allowing myself to enjoy playing with my cats without checking my cell phone. So I get it. But I think, one thing is again, getting back to how cats hunt. So they don't just run around chasing a bird. That's not how cats hunt. If you've ever watched a cat hunt, you know that they, sneak up, maybe they like crawl to a spot where they know a bird's going to show up. Maybe they're hanging out by a bird feeder. And once they spot that bird, they're really taking their time calculating what the perfect moment is to pounce. And they really only have one opportunity. It's pretty hard, actually, for cats to successfully hunt birds unless the birds are very young and weak. So when you're moving the toy, thinking about, okay, your cat's stalking a bird. Now, what's the bird doing? Well, if the bird knows there's a cat in the vicinity, they're often trying to also figure out, like, how can I get away from this cat? And so they're not necessarily going to move quickly because that could draw attention to themselves. They're going to also be kind of calculating. Or perhaps they're not aware of the cat and they're just doing their own little bird pecking at the ground and, just hopping and doing little flights here and there. So what people tend to do when they're playing with their cats, kind of whip the toy around really fast, which can work with kittens because kittens will chase anything that moves and kittens are just racing around like little maniacs doing backflips and zooming all around. But adult cats do tend to be much more calculated and discerning about toy movements. Whereas a kitten is like, okay, if it moves kind of like a bird or a bug, it probably is a bird or a bug and I'll chase it. Whereas that adult cat is going to be like, is this worth my time? Like, convince me. Make me think this is a bird or bug. And so that's when you really have to move the toy in different ways. But what I found is that cats really respond well when you move the toy so slowly. It's almost boring for us. And that's why I think people have difficulty with this, is because it is really like, there have been times playing with my own cats where it can take a 10-minute buildup where I'm barely moving the toy. The cat is watching the toy the entire time. And I like looking like, am I going to butt wiggle or not? And I'm just like, oh my God, please pounce on the toy. And when they finally do, it's very rewarding, but it's a very long buildup. And I jokingly call this kitty foreplay because I think there's some parallels that I won't get into.
Yeah,
now.
I could see that.
But it is like a very long, slow buildup for some cats. And it does require patience and moving the toy very slowly. I'm a big fan of props for play as well. So using things like a ripple rug or tissue paper or a tunnel or cushions on your couch or anything that you can move the toy under or between or behind. These are all things that will excite your cat because, again, thinking about what a prey animal would do, they would, a mouse would go into a hole. A bird would go into a hole in a tree. They might try to hide behind something. So we're just using things in the environment to simulate that predatory experience a little bit better. Okay, so that was moving the toy slowly. What was the other? Sorry, there was one more tip that you wanted me to.
Stick end of the toy under the rug.
Oh yeah, that's like
Yeah, and making sure, and you already said this, that the cat's successful and has time to handle.
yeah. Yeah. So the stick end of the toy under the rug is basically my best trick. If your cat will not play, if all else fails, then you can try the stick end of a toy under a rug or under a piece of tissue paper or a towel. Most cats will go bananas for that one. They just love it. And it's very much mimicking the mouse going into a mouse hole, which cats are naturally attracted to crevices for hunting purposes. So it's interesting, like they kind of have some instincts built in that we can take advantage of. Like they're attracted to rustling sounds that might indicate a mouse or a bird hopping around in some leaves outside. They're naturally attracted to crevices, places that, little rodents would go into, or if you've ever walked by a tree with a hole in it, you might see some little birds flying in and out of that tree hole. So we're just kind of taking advantage of some of the things that scientists have already noticed about cats for us, that they're naturally attracted to these things when they're hunting. So we can take advantage of that when we're playing with them.
Absolutely. What is your favorite toy?
Ooh, it's hard to pick just one because it really depends on the cat and how the cat likes it. And, I definitely have a few standbys, like classics. So the Go Cat de Bird is one of those classics. And this is a wand with a long string and a little series of feathers on the end. And the feathers are very stiff and they're on a swivel attachment. So when you move the de Bird through the air, it makes this really lovely fluttering sound, much like a real bird. And it's got a nice long stick and a nice long string. So you can really fly around your room with this toy. It gives you quite a bit of distance too. So if you have a cat who gets a little too excited in play and maybe tries to go for your hands or your legs, the de Bird gives you a lot of distance from your cat while you're playing. So that's a great one. The Cat Dancer is another great toy. It's just a piece of wire with cardboard on the ends, like little curls of cardboard. It's one of the oldest cat toys, so they're definitely like, I feel like the OG of interactive toys, and it's a very simple toy, but it does allow for some really nice small movements that are very bug-like. It's a great toy for shy cats because it's very small and quiet. So I do love the de Bird. I mean, there's lots. I love the bamboozler, which is a stick with a long piece of like nylon on the end. It's kind of like a snake. And I also love props for play. So I mentioned the ripple rug, and there's also the sheer fun for cats, which is a translucent piece of fabric that you can attach to different things and move the toy underneath it. So that's another, again, not a toy, but more of a supportive prop for play. And yeah, there's lots of toys. So, the other thing I'll just say is you are going to have to probably buy multiple toys to keep your cat happy, because I do recommend rotating out toys frequently. But you can make a lot of toys too. And once you have a good wand with a string and a little, swivel attachment on the end, you can add a lot of things to that toy. You can switch out lures. You can buy a lot of different, toys to put on the end, or you can even make things to put on the end, like little pieces of paper. I put green beans and all kinds of weird stuff on wand toys.
That's a good idea, because eating green beans is fun.
I always, like, when I buy green beans, I buy a few extra for my cats because they really love to play with green beans.
Let's talk briefly about one of the no's. So laser pointers.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess I would describe myself as agnostic about the laser pointer. Like, I try not to be too negative about it, but it's also like, it's so low on my list of where I would go if I was playing with my cat, that it's like, some cats are really get into the laser pointer, I will say. So it's not a hard no for me, but there are problems. And one of the problems is, of course, your cat can never catch the laser. They can never touch it. And so much of what I talked about earlier, right, is that sensation of like feeling it in their paws and their mouth. They can never catch the laser. So there's a potential there for frustration. And we want to make sure that we're making play fun and not frustrating. Cats do not seem to be as prone to laser light obsession as dogs do. So this is a, documented issue in dogs that can become a compulsive behavior where they're just looking for lights constantly. And so you want to just be cautious that your cat is not veering into that kind of obsessive compulsive zone where it seems like they're so obsessed with the light that they can't think about anything else. So that's another potential problem.
Oh boy.
The other issue is just that people often don't move it in a very natural way. So they kind of just turn it off and on. And so it doesn't follow the law of physics, right? And I talk a little bit about this in the book is like, if you're going to use the laser pointer, then at least make it act like a bug would act and move it. So if you need to turn it off, like have it direct it towards under a door or go out a window or something. So it kind of makes sense to your cat that it disappeared instead of just turning it off in the middle of nowhere where your cat's like, where did it go? And I do recommend if you are going to use one that you use it as like a warm up and then switch to a physical toy and or toss some treats for your cat. So there is kind of a completion of this hunting cycle for them.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So I don't say it's off the table, but it really is like when you think of playing with your cat, the first thing you do is reach for the laser pointer. You should read my book. I hope my book will change your mind. And then the laser pointer will just end up at the bottom of a bin and you'll barely like think of it.
We were starting to talk about this before, but I also, hopefully we have time for the other, but you said that you suggest rotating toys. I should have like 10 and hide them and rotate them so that my cats get excited when I bring out the toy.
Yeah. And I talk about, there's a classic study by Dr. John Bradshaw, who's like one of the world's best cat experts out there. And he's done some really amazing research, including research on play behavior in cats. And, one of his studies showed that cats do get bored of the same toy. Now, we don't know why they get bored of the same toy. I have some thoughts, like I think probably they can smell their saliva on it if they've bitten it. There may be other aspects of the toy's features that they just recognize, like, oh yeah, I've already touched this, I've already played with it. So it is important to have a handful of toys in your repertoire. I mean, I really try to focus a lot on like keeping things manageable for people, which is why I encourage a lot of DIY and like, find things around the house that you can tie to a string and tie to a stick. And now you've got a toy so that you don't have to go out and spend like hundreds of dollars on cat toys, recognizing that your cat is going to get bored if you use the same toy over and over again. So I like to store all of my toys in a closet organizer system that I have. And when we're playing with our cats, we kind of have a daily play session at a set time. And then we also have some spontaneous shorter play sessions throughout the day. But I like to go, grab a toy that I haven't used that day. I'll play with it if my cats seem interested. If they don't seem interested, I go grab a different toy. And so sometimes when I'm playing with my cats, I might go through 5 or 6 toys in one single play session. We might only get a few minutes out of a toy. And then they're like, yeah, I'm done with this. And they'll, okay, go get a different one. So I do encourage people to have plenty of things you can rotate. If not the whole toy, then just the lure, right? Which is the piece that goes at the end of the toy, the thing that looks like a mouse or a bird or, whatever small object you have hanging on the end of the stick and the string. So yes, we know that cats do get bored of the same toy within a play session. So you do want to just, try a few different ones. Don't bring out the same toy. And, there's probably maybe a time where you have to swap some toys with another cat friend of yours or just kind of refresh your supply. But, recognizing that, and maybe part of it, again, goes back to their hunting behavior. They shouldn't get bored of hunting, right? Because they need to hunt to survive. So in order to make our toys more prey-like, they should be unique because there's no way the cat would hunt the exact same mouse twice. If they hunted it once, they ate it. It's gone. So in that respect, you could argue, well, the cats would be happy if you got them a new toy every single time. Not realistic, but that is probably what would make them happy because they would definitely know like, oh, I've not killed this one yet. So just keeping that in mind that we do need to bring in some novelty to keep them interested. And once you know that, then it's much more helpful in guiding your play because if you don't know that and you only have one toy and you just assume like, my cat doesn't like to play. Every time I bring the toy out, he ignores it. As opposed to knowing that cats get bored of the same toy over and over again, okay, I can't play with the cat dancer every day because we played the cat dancer yesterday. So today it's going to be the bird. And maybe tomorrow it's going to be the little, mouse on the end of a string. And then the day after that, it's going to be the ribbons. And so you kind of have that understanding instead of just going to, oh, he doesn't like to play. Okay, I need to bring in some more variety.
That's great advice because so many of us pet parents buy 2 or 3, or we buy the little catnip toys that they play with for 5 minutes, then they're done. So what I want to also emphasize before because we're almost near closing, but what I also want to emphasize to our listeners is this is so much more than just a play with your cat book because you talk about behaviors, you talk about why and how and and what their need for play. But you also have information on playing with cats that are older, that are handicapped, deaf or blind, shelter cats. There's just tons of information. It's how to play with your cat, but it's so much more. So it's really a fantastic book.
Thank you. Yeah, I really wanted it to be something that could be applicable to even people who don't have cats. So people who work in an animal shelter that might not have a cat, but they work with the cats in the shelter. Or I certainly didn't want people to think that, well, my cat, this doesn't apply to my cat because X, Y, or Z. So I really did try to think of like every possible X, Y, or Z. Like, okay, your cat's overweight, your cat's declawed, your cat has a disability. So I really tried to bring something to every cat person I could think of, and in hopes of encouraging them to find a way to play with their cat.
Well, you did that and more. Okay, so if you could tell our listening audience one or two things to remember besides listening to this podcast, a couple times, but one or 2 points that you'd like to get across, what would they be?
Yeah, I want to get across to them that play is something that our cats need to do. It helps them be happy and healthy. We know that play is good for our physical health. It's good for our mental health. This is found across multiple species. So that is the most important thing, I think, is to really understand the responsibility we have as pet parents to make our cats happy. Like, I think our cats bring us a lot of joy and we can repay the favor. And to that end, I think my second point would be just to have fun with it. Like, the book is not meant to be, like I said, this manual where if you don't do every single thing I say, it's wrong. It's really not about being right or wrong. It's about having fun with your cat and enjoying watching them play, because to me, it's so fun. I mean, when I play with my cats, I just laugh and I'm always smiling, and like it's just very cute. So I hope that people really see their cat in a new light and appreciate that side of their cat.
I think they will. It's a really good book. I've had other books about play on Cattitude, having hosted this show for almost 7 years. And this is I think my favorite.
Oh, thank you.
It's a really good book. So informative. And I love when books, like you said, it's like reference style, you can read the whole book, but you can also go back and reference it, which is why you need to buy it, because you have to keep reference books. So where can people buy it? This is the book. If you have a cat, you need to play with your cat. This is the book to get. So, Michael, where can people find your book?
Yeah, so the book is being put out by Penguin Random House, by one of their imprints, which is Tarcher Perigee. And so you can go to the Penguin Random House website, which I believe is, hold on, I want to just make sure. You can also go to my website, which is mikeldelgado.com, and buy it there. So yeah, it's penguinrandomhouse.com/books, and you should be able to find it. And my website, which is mikeldelgado.com, I've got all the links to purchase it, including, all of the other places that you can typically buy books. Or you can go to your local bookstore.
And folks, it's spelled Mikel Delgado. And the link will be on the show page for this episode. So, Michael, I want to thank you so much for coming on Cattitude. This has been such a fun show. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been really fun.
Well, I hope all of you enjoyed this show. I found it so informative, and I just simply love this book. Play with Your Cat by Mikel Maria Delgado. And again, you can find out more information when you go to the episode page for this show. I would like to thank everybody listening that listens to Cattitude. I so appreciate it. Cattitude is one of the most popular podcasts out there, so thank you. I'd like to thank my crew that teaches me about cats, Charlotte, Dennis, and Molly, all three very different cats, and whoa, I've learned a lot. And thanks so much to my producer, Mark Winter, who works his magic and makes myself and my guest sound amazing. And hey, remember, lose the attitude of Cattitude.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.